AM First Fruits.
Have you read the Bible today?
This is a chapter by chapter Bible study series, and we're in Job chapter 31. This whole chapter, Job is claiming his innocence. It is his final plea for God to please give me a verdict so we can be through the suffering. And I found a lot of similarities to Job's self-examination to the Sermon on the Mount.
Everything that Job talks about is what Jesus talks about in the Sermon on the Mount, except Jesus takes it deeper, really dives into the heart cavities.
I have made a covenant with my eyes. How then could I look at a young woman? For what portion would I have from God above, or what inheritance from the Almighty on high? Doesn't disaster come to the unjust and misfortune to the evildoers?
Job starts off strong talking about eyes and desire. Jesus covers that in the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 5:27-28, looking with lust is already adultery in the heart.
Job continues in 4, does he not see my ways and number all my steps? If I have walked in falsehood, or my foot has rushed to deceit, let God weigh me on accurate scales, and he will recognize my integrity.
Job knows that God is watching. He's also hitting in 5 and 6 the truthfulness and honesty that he has had in his lifetime. Jesus covered that one too. Matthew 6:1-6, Jesus warns against practicing righteousness to be seen. Job had walked in truthfulness and honesty. He didn't do it just to be seen.
7, if my step has turned from the way, my heart has followed my eyes, or impurity has stained my hands, let someone else eat what I have sown, and let my crops be uprooted. Search me, O God, in a way. Verse 9, if my heart has gone astray over a woman, or I have lurked at my neighbor's door, let my own wife grind grain for another man, and let other men sleep with her. For that would be a disgrace. It would be an iniquity deserving punishment, for it is a fire that consumes down to Abaddon. It would destroy my entire harvest.
Job is talking about faithfulness to his wife.
13, if I have dismissed the case of my male or female servants when they made a complaint against me, what could I do when God stands up to judge? How should I answer him when he calls me to account? Did not the one who made me in the womb also make them? Did not the same God form us both in the womb?
Job is saying that he had been faithful with power and authority. He saw other people as equals. And this echoes in the Sermon on the Mount Jesus' golden rule in Matthew 7:12. Do unto others as you want God to do unto you. 16-23, he talks about caring for the widows, the poor, the orphans. And that echoes also in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:7, blessed are the merciful.
If you notice, the fear of God is trickled throughout this whole chapter. For disaster from God terrifies me, and because of his majesty I could not do these things. This is why Job has been faithful. He fears the Lord. 24, if I place my confidence in gold, or called fine gold my trust, if I've rejoiced because my wealth is great, or because my own hands has acquired so much. He is saying that he did not worship money. He had money, but he didn't worship it. That is humming the tune of Matthew 6:19-24. Serve God and not money. 26-28 covers idolatry. Even looking at the sun and feeling, or the moon, and feeling tempted to worship them would be idolatry. Job is saying he wasn't even tempted to worship any of those. 29, have I rejoiced over my enemy's distress, or become excited when trouble came his way? I have not allowed my mouth to sin by asking for his life with a curse. He did not hate his enemies. Jesus in Matthew 5:44 says to love your enemies. Verse 31-34, Job is talking about how hospitable he was. It says that he didn't fear people, he only feared God. In Matthew 5:16 says, let your light shine, not your image.
Job mentions again, if only I had someone to hear my case. Another mention of a need for a mediator. And Job is not claiming absolute sinlessness here. He is just responding to his friend, look, I'm not living this sinful life that you are accusing me of. And this chapter ends with a mic drop. It says the words of Job are concluded. Job stops talking. He's done. Job spoke until there was nothing else to say. Sometimes silence is the best option. And in Job's case, truth reached its limit in words. If he just continued to talk, it would just shrink the truth of it all. He left the rest up to God. he concluded. Job 31 is basically showing us integrity under scrutiny. The Sermon on the Mount is a wholeness under grace. Job is saying, examine me, and Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount is saying, be transformed. Both are trying to teach us how to live undivided to God. Thank you for watching this 4 a.m. First Fruits, and I'll see you in the next video when we cover Job chapter 32.